Has honor, respect, and discipline been lost in today's martial arts? We'll find out in round 2 of the WCMA's Inside the Ring, as we profile 9th degree black belt Hanshi Dan Culp, as he shares his thoughts on the matter, while also telling us about the humble beginnings of his very first dojo. That's all coming up next.
It's time for Inside the Ring with host Mike Petrarca.
I know your first karate studio you had, was it 1981?
1981 is when I opened, yes.
You opened. Now, just because the viewer can't see, we're obviously in the ring, they can't see, but try to describe it. Take us there to your very first dojo. We walk through the doors. What's it like?
The first one I opened.
The first one you opened, yeah.
Well, it was actually interesting because it was Mr. Arundel's dojo at Bonnet Shores, and then he moved to Wakefield and on Main Street, so that building sat vacant for a while. Then I took it over. It was kind of beat up. It was an old American health club. It had red shag carpeting and a big
red shag?
Yeah,
red.
That used to tear your feet up, man. My feet would get all blistered up from it, believe it or not. It had a sauna, and it was pretty cool. But we converted it into a dojo, and but it was sat vacant for quite a while, and so it was pretty beat up. So my father loaned me some money, and him and I went in a few weeks before the grand opening, and we put paneling up and made an office and got the locker room all set, and I put ads in the paper, and I remember had boards. I was going to do a demonstration, and one person showed up. And it was a kid that lived in an apartment complex behind me.
How did he find you?
Well, he must have known I had balloons outside and a sign grand opening, so I broke boards for him and did a demonstration for one person, yeah.
Wow.
Like a 12-year-old kid. But I said, hey, at least I got one student, and he signed up, and then it started to snowball from there. But
that's amazing.
But I was there, like I said, the reference of me moving a lot made me kind of more of an independent thinker. So I still to this day I enjoy doing a lot of things on my own. I'm fine being by myself. I have a wonderful girlfriend, but I love being alone, and I do a lot of thinking. So I was there 7 days a week working out and creating techniques and working on the facilities. So it was an important place for me when I was
Is it safe
younger.
to say at a young age, because of all the moving around, you became pretty adaptable?
Yes. And as a little personal side note, too, I was also adopted, so I spent some time in foster homes and moved around quite a lot, even as a youth, before I got adopted by an amazing family. So I think just by nature, I feel more comfortable, of being alone. I do a lot of thinking, so it's kind of my story,
And then, how has it evolved to your dojo now in North Kingstown?
Evolved in what way?
Just the atmosphere has changed. Or do you have more students now than one?
Well, more than one, yeah. I don't break boards anymore either. It hurts my hands. But it is adopted. It's advanced beautifully. We do jiu-jitsu now, obviously boxing, karate, of course. We have a big weight facility. I became a certified personal trainer. I study nutrition. So I try to do the whole complete aspect of it. I'm very much into Zen and Buddhism, so I try to sprinkle that in as much as possible as well. Keep the ego under control, So it's evolved exactly how I was hoping it would be, but it took many, many years. A lot of trial and error.
And I've had the privilege to be there. So just to give the viewers an idea, when you walk in, you go up the stairs.
Yep.
To the right, you have those beautiful Bruce Lee photos, sayings. Then you walk in to this wonderful boxing area. You have the different kind of bags. So beautiful boxing area right there.
Yep.
And then it opens up. You have the mat. You have the ring. You have your own ring there.
Right.
Which is really cool.
Yes.
And you have the calligraphy of Shizen-do, don't you?
I do. Sensei von Krenner did it for me. It's just beautiful. It hangs on the wall. We have a big poster of it. We have, of course, patch for our uniform. I set the facility up exactly how I would want it, with a boxing room and a dojo, of course. It's a matted floor now.
Matted floor?
We don't roll on the hardwood anymore. We have a beautiful weight facility. We have a common area and an office and a locker room. And so it's set up so it's comfortable for people. But also, and I'm glad that I did this because it was before MMA, but I realized that we need to have a variety. So I didn't want to just teach straight karate. I wanted to have some weight training, some jiu-jitsu, some boxing, some different aspects. We have a spin class that goes on there. I have a couple of trainers that train people out of the facility. So it's pretty expansive.
So you're all about the holistic approach, right? I mean, as a martial artist, you live it.
I would like to think so. Yes.
And you're so many, I feel like you have so many different personas, DC, right? You're a martial artist, you're an inventor, you're in the Rhode Island Music Hall of Fame. We're going to touch upon that later.
Sure.
And you have this life to you, this natural wonder. Do all those personas work in harmony, or are they sometimes at war within themselves?
That's a wonderful question, and I get this all the time in the terms of you do too much. But I always say to people, I say the same thing. You probably work 8 hours a day, maybe an hour to get to work, an hour to get home, so that's 10 hours a day you're putting into your job. And they say, yeah, that's about right. And I say, I do about the same thing. But I have several different things that I do. And I learned this actually from Sensei von Krenner and his beautiful wife, Mrs. von Krenner. She has a concept, and he has a concept called inchworming. And inchworming is that you work on a project, you do it until you start to get burnt out on it or maybe frustrated a little bit, and you clean it up, but you put it in a place where you store it, and then you move on to the next project. So I have a lot of different things that I do, but I put a few hours in of each one every day and move on to the next. So quite honestly, it's exciting. And for me, at the end of the day, I can sit back and say I made progress here, I made progress here, I made progress here. But I will say the central theme, besides the discipline that my mom and dad taught me, is the martial arts, because the self-discipline allows me to work on things until I start to feel a little bit like I've had enough, and then I can move on to the next project. So
that's amazing.
That's kind of where it comes from.
I like that. Yeah, thanks for explaining that. Inchworming.
Yeah.
Now you touched on something just now that I'd like to go
Please.
Back to. Honor, discipline, respect. Is that still present in today's martial arts?
Ooh, boy. Well, I certainly don't want to critique or criticize anybody's philosophy, but I have noticed a trend, and I guess as a 9th degree black belt and with some experience, I have a right to speak a little bit on the subject. So it's gone a little commercial, in my opinion. I'm not saying that's wrong, because I know people have to make a living. But one of the reasons why I have other sources of income is because I don't want to solely rely on the karate school for my source of income, because then it seems like it loses. Like I don't do contracts and I don't have black belt clubs, and there's nothing wrong with that. It motivates people, and that's important for our instructors. But I personally, and that's the beauty of independence, right? You can kind of approach it the way you choose, which is actually what Do means. Do is a way. So Aikido, Judo, Taekwondo, Shizen-do, you study a way. And the way is not just physical, it's a spiritual approach. So that's how I choose to do it. As far as honor goes, I do think that's been lost a little bit. MMA is fun and exciting to watch, but let's face it, it's fighting. It's fighting, and so a lot of the tradition has been taken out of it. But probably wouldn't sell as many pay-per-views if they wore gis and bowed to each other. So I get it, I really get it. But I personally like to try to keep that aspect in, and we're growing at our school. I think our finger's on the pulse of what's happening, but we kneel down, we put our belts on, we bow to each other, we show honor and respect, and I like to keep that as present as I possibly can.
And that's really important to you, mixing the old traditions with the new ways. Right?
To me, yes, very much to me, very much so. I also think, to be honest with you, there's a lot of hidden strength in that too. And we talk about in our dojo the four principles of power in a technique. So you have the torque principle, which is turning. You have body alignment, which is lining up. And you have backup mass. Those are physical things. But the fourth element or fourth principle of power is internal power. And students look at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, we'll get into that. Torque, body alignment, and backup mass are easy to teach. But this is about breath, about commitment.
And that's a chi, right?
Chi, yes,
chi,
yep. Chi or chi, depending on, yep. But it's passion, it's commitment, it's overcoming anxiety, it's controlling your ego. You know, those are very, very important parts of technique. And then when you step out of the ring, fighting isn't the way to go through life, so then you tap into that spiritual aspect, and that helps people excel to the next level. The samurai were very good at this. We know the samurai were amazing fighters. You know, they could take your head off at the blink of an eye. But when they were asked to put their swords down, too much bloodshed, they're like, cool. So they put their swords down, but then they became successful teachers and businessmen and family men, men of character. You know, I don't know any samurai personally, but I've done a lot of reading. But what I always have taken from that is the development of high proficiency of swordsmanship and combat. That same discipline could be used in business, in art.
It's that single-pointed focus.
Yes, it doesn't have to just be I'm the toughest guy at the cookout. You know, you can be a strong warrior, but you can also be a compassionate, caring, loving person. I personally like to teach people the underdogs, you know. I like teaching people that, you know, lack a little bit of confidence or maybe are a little lack in size or maybe have been bullied a little bit. And those are the people, I don't teach them how to fight so they can get revenge.
Right.
I teach them how to beat those demons inside of themselves that cause them to have that insecurity. And that's kind of where I'm coming from.
From humble beginnings with one student to a thriving martial arts academy, Don's can-do attitude, combined with the philosophy of Zen and Buddhism, has served him well, while also making him an example for others. Make sure to watch round 3 of the WCMA's Inside the Ring as we continue to profile Hanshi Don Culp and talk about what makes an effective martial arts instructor and what you should expect when considering one. If you would like to learn more about Hanshi Don Culp, or if you're interested in training at his dojo, his doors are always open at 220 Old Baptist Road in North Kingston, Rhode Island. Or you can visit him on the web at donculp.net or call 401-885-9774.